My name is Lenny, and I will be reviewing the proposition that social media has changed the culture of young adults in America negatively. The advocate's secondary claims are that 1, social media is addictive, 2, cyberbullying results from social media, and 3, social media diminishes privacy. Let's talk about the advocate's first secondary claim, social media is addictive. She gives an example on Gary Turk's poetic video Look Up on YouTube. And she quotes only one sentence from the video. This media we call social media is anything but when we open our computers and its doors we shut. This quote doesn't really prove anything about social media addiction. I watched the entire video on YouTube, and the message conveyed is not about social media addiction, but rather that people need to interact more with humans rather than interacting on social media. And she gives also some statistical data that are accurate, but however, she also she gives that 3 hours a day on average of social media from users is considered an addiction. However, this is very vague, as if I exercise 3 hours a day, am I addicted to exercising? And what are the negative consequences of these addictions? She doesn't state any of the consequences of social media addiction. Therefore, her definition with a vague definition on addiction and just not a good evidence of that social media addiction is true, it doesn't really help her main claim. Onto the advocate's secondary claim. Secondary claim that that cyberbullying results from social media. This claim is very similar to does violence video games cause violence, or rated R movies cause violence? It's not the media itself that causes cyberbullying, but rather the users that causes the cyberbullying itself. A professor in John C. LeBlanc with a master's degree in psychology states that cyberbullying occurs in the context of regular bullying. Because of this stats, the advocate doesn't really know that cyberbullying doesn't come from social media, but rather from the users or the bullies themselves, as they are sociopaths that have lack of empathy. Onto the advocate's third secondary claim, social media diminishes privacy. The advocate gives an example from an article on Boston Globe that 2 MIT students determined a man is gay or not from a software program on the user's data, Facebook profile data. However, on the article itself, it doesn't mention. It mentions that it cannot. The data is not reliable for lesbians or bisexuals. So it's only for the sexual, on whether it could obtain data that people are gay or not. This evidence doesn't prove that privacy diminishes. It's not even life-threatening, because Facebook already explains that, or has a social orientation that you put on if you're whatever you prefer. So, and not only that, but on Facebook's privacy policy page on the terms and conditions, they state that they will share some of the information to third parties or advertisement companies. And when you sign up a profile of Facebook, you have to accept yes. And obviously, the people that accept yes have to share the information. So it doesn't make sense why you have to complain that we lack privacy. If the young adults don't look at the policies on the page, on the terms and conditions, then they obviously risk the information to third parties, and people want to share the privacy. But in social media, also wants to show privacy on their lives. Thank you.
All right, structurally everything's pretty good. You seem to go into depth on a couple of things, like you watch that YouTube video, but your argument basically says it's about the importance of interacting with human beings. So I'm not sure why that doesn't apply to the argument that the advocate's presenting. So you kind of challenge the evidence here, but the evidence seems to be saying something that the advocate claims it said, and you don't explain why it doesn't really fit in that category. That was a little confusing to me. I did like the challenge that you had on the 3 hours a day, that would suggest that a lot of behaviors would be addictive, and you suggest that that's an unreasonable definition. What I thought, though, was most useful argument on this particular point was that there's no demonstration of any consequence to those 3 hours a day, that there's no harm shown, no decline in friendships, in relationships, and no increase in divorces, no failure to get promoted. There's no social consequence that's being demonstrated here, and I thought that that's a very strong argument on that particular point. On the cyberbullying thing, I feel a little bit like you're going in a circular direction. I do appreciate the notion that says, look, it's similar to other things. It's a tool. Bullies use the tool, but the cyber environment does not create the bully. And then you just kind of go past that, and there's an argument about lacking empathy, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to do with that, how that applies to the argument that the advocate's presenting. On the privacy issue, you kind of, in essence, say, well, the MIT process, well, it doesn't work on lesbians and bisexuals, so I guess it's, their privacy is good, at least until the MIT students do their beta version of the next one, or 2.0, I guess I should say. So when we got MIT Gay ID 2.0, then it's going to be different. So I'm not exactly sure that that's the good response on that particular point. The better response, I think, is that, look, when you get on Facebook, you are surrendering a lot of privacy. I'm sorry, I just saw an example today. I saw a posting from somebody that I know that says, it's none of your effing business what I post on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I'm going, excuse me? You're posting on Facebook for everybody to read. How can it not be people's business if it shows up in their news feed? That to me is like cluelessness, number one, in relationship to what Facebook is about. In other words, I'm going to post stuff out there for people to read, but damn it, don't read it and don't think anything I say matters. I think that's the kind of thing you ought to be talking about, is that people who are surrendering their privacy are doing so voluntarily, and that they don't realize it doesn't mean that it's a problem for social media. It means it's a problem for stupid people. And that's maybe a good way of saying it, although it's kind of cruel to say it that way.